Hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this 10-day challenge. I've been reading the emails that Leanne put together for us, and I know I'm going to get a lot out of the conversation that we have tonight and over the next couple of days, and I trust you will too. So thanks so much for joining us. A few logistical things before we get started. This is a YouTube live event, so if you are here with us right now, there is a chat function. I think it's to the right. Oh, there's a little bit of delay. To one of these directions of the screen, there's a dialog box where you can say hello, tell us where you're from. And I'm particularly interested, a whole bunch of you responded to the first email that we sent out, and you let us know why you were participating in this self-compassion challenge. But it might be great if you'd be willing to share that with the group here. If you're on a mobile device, I think there's an option for weighing in on the chat for the live, but if you can't, you can send us an email, anthony@newleafmeditation.org. I will check in for questions or comments there through the course of this conversation. If you're watching this recorded, you can email us, and Leanne and I will be happy to respond to you in the near future. If you got to this live event and you have not yet signed up for the challenge formally, meaning that you haven't gone to www.newleafmeditation.org/self-compassion, that's where the sign up is for the daily emails. So there's going to be 10 emails that Leanne spent a lot of time crafting that has some really wonderful content. So if you want to follow the course of the challenge, please, I'll put a link in the comments just beneath this video in the YouTube. It should be the first link that you see there, but absolutely not something you're going to want to miss out on. My friend Leanne here is one of our New Leaf meditation instructors and has quickly become one of my very dear friends. I'm just very happy that she's gotten so involved in our community over the last year, but particularly valued from our friendship. So I just wanted to read a little bit from her bio so you get a little bit of a sense of who she is. Let's see here. This would assume that my computer could actually do two things at once, like stream and open an email that has Leanne's bio. Survey says, this is a dramatic pause. Did we do a dun dun dun? No. Leanne Harris has been practicing Zen meditation for over 15 years. She's an analyst and a coach who helps others develop resilience by using mindfulness, acceptance, and committed actions to live a meaningful life. Her meditation practice started after one too many days of feeling overwhelmed and anxious by intense loss and change. As a recovering overthinker, my favorite line in your whole bio, Leanne, she has led meditation instruction and retreats over the years to help people calm their wild like a puppy minds. She lives with her husband and 4 dogs and works as an analyst in IT. For walking dogs, you can find her doing bookish things like reading and blogging about the books she loves. You know, on a personal level, I just think Leanne is an absolute delight, a wonderful and very active member of our community. She's been introducing us to a whole bunch of wonderful people who we've really valued from getting to know. And, you know, I'm just very proud of the 10-day challenge she put together here. So Leanne, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I want to start with a question. Maybe you could get us kicked off with why did self-compassion become an important topic in your life? Why is this something that you've studied about and read about and written about over the years?
Self-compassion to me, I think kind of can be summed up in the same way that I introduce myself when I do the meditation instruction. Hi, I'm Leanne Harris. I started meditating because I have a health crisis, that I did not handle well, to say the least. I guess now 17 years ago, became overwhelmed and just very despondent, very depressed, wasn't able to work, didn't do my normal things. and basically decided that I had to either, find something that helped or I was going to live a miserable life. And started to learn how to become the person that I most needed at that time. And along the way, I discovered the concept of self-compassion, that I always didn't always need someone else to show me the kind of care and comfort that I craved, that I could provide it to myself. It's not to say that I became a one-woman powerhouse island. We definitely are interconnected with others. But I think a lot of the things that I was looking for from the outside world, it took extra steps to kind of turn that around as to something that I could bring into my own life. For me, self-compassion was kind of a surprise. Remember talking to a friend. He asked me, well, what do you do to soothe yourself? What do you do when you're upset? And I looked at him like, what do you mean soothe myself? Why would I soothe myself? It really was a foreign concept when I came across it the first time. But when I found the kindness and could quiet that mind, as a recovering overthinker, as I say, also perfectionistic tendencies, just a little bit. Self-compassion helped me balance the two sides, my analytical side and my human side, almost come to say. That's probably the biggest reason I came into self-compassion, was I couldn't keep doing what I was doing.
I really appreciate that. Maybe what's the flip side of that coin? What do you feel like, how has your life changed since you've made this a topic that you've explored and probed?
It's kind of corny, so you're gonna have to give me a little on this. You always read about those lifestyle places, run away, go to Tahiti, or, live the life of an exotic writer on an island. And yeah, I always thought if I had a better job or had a bigger bank account or drove a better car, had more friends, life would be great. And I think the biggest thing for self-compassion for me was help me live a life I don't want a vacation from. That's not to say I don't get stressed, but I stay mindful about not living for the weekend. What can I do each and every day, right where I am, that if I'm not, maybe not on a beach sipping a pina colada, at least feel like I'm engaged and active, and becoming part of the community around me. That's why I say it sounds a little corny, because it's like, really, who does that? But it's taken over 15 years to get here. So it wasn't like an overnight, oh yeah, you can do that in 30 days. And for $19.99, you can do it in 10. It doesn't quite work like that.
I don't think it sounds corny at all. It sounds, one of the things I was struck with when I was reading the materials you prepared for the week is what I almost felt foolish for meditating as long as I have, and this not being a really central part of my practice. It sounds like you're talking about practicing with your life. I'm hearing that. I love that theme of not giving way to those if onlys. I would be happy if only fill in the blank, because there's just always a new if only to come chasing after. A friend of mine recently suggested that I might think about wanting what I have instead of having what I want as a life goal. It feels sort of very related to that. Can I share just a personal story real quick about what led me to sort of being so fascinated with this? I'm beating myself up for not thinking that this is really an extension of my meditation practice, and that's not actually totally true. I was running a beta version of a 21-day meditation instruction. This was probably like 2013, because I was still doing my graduate studies on habit formation for new meditators. And I was working with a friend who was an experienced meditator. And normally at this point in the course, I would do a 20-minute guided meditation. I said, oh, Celia, you know how to meditate. Would you like a guided meditation, or would you prefer silence? And she said to me, let's just meditate quietly. To which I said, that's great. I hate the sound of my own voice. And then I sat there silently for 10 minutes as we meditated. And those words were just ringing in my ears. And I realized that that particular year, in 2012 and into 13, I was really working on about my speech. I had started out, I was cursing more often than I wanted. I wanted to curb that habit. And I discovered that the reason I was cursing is because I wasn't thoughtful about my language at all. And so it wasn't just a bad habit that I was swearing, it's that I was just impulsively talking instead of thinking about what I was going to say and maybe trying to make sure I was using my words for good or to create harmony, sort of be in line with some of the values that I care about. So I'm sitting there in 10 minutes of silent meditation, and I'm thinking, my God, I would never say that out loud about somebody else's voice. And I actually rarely would even think about it in such a critical way of someone else. And yet here I am totally comfortable saying, I hate the sound of my own voice. It's a pretty strong word. And that was the beginning of a little bit of a practice for me to think about, I talk this big game about equality, and there's no superhumans and no subhumans, just human humans. But why do I then have that kind of negative self-talk? Why am I comfortable speaking to myself that way if I wouldn't treat, anyone, an absolute stranger or even somebody I knew well, I wouldn't even say that. So I'm intrigued by this whole concept, but I do have sort of a knee-jerk reaction, and there's a few comments from some of our friends that I'd like to share with you as well. But before I get to that, I do have sort of a knee-jerk reaction when the topic of self-compassion comes up that I'm hoping you could address just a little bit. I think of myself as very service-oriented and trying to put others first, and I practice kindness as an ideal that's rich and deep in my day-to-day life, from holding the door open to somebody to volunteer work and everything in between, right? But it seems to me that I have this cultural ideal of being the helper that I'm really proud to run after and sacrifice greatly for. And so when I start saying, well, I need to treat myself with a little bit of compassion, I need to be less hard on myself and maybe treat myself with the same kindness that I would show other people, there's this knee-jerk reaction that I feel uncomfortable with it. Like, oh my gosh, what if I tell people I'm investing in a little bit of self-care and taking care of myself? Are they going to think I'm a selfish and bad person? And I sort of have this, I'll just stop there. Is that a typical situation? Did you sort of encounter this? I mean, I know you to be somebody, you're one of our volunteer meditation instructors. You devote a lot of time to helping other people. I know about all of the variety of volunteer work you do in your personal life. So certainly this is a thought that must have crossed your mind, or am I crazy and this is just me?
No, it is not just you. I definitely had the same the same reaction. What do you mean self-compassion? You mean selfish, right? I'm going to learn how to be selfish, and then I'm going to not want to do anything but take bubble baths and eat bonbons all day. This sounds dumb. The second reaction I had, I'm an analyst in IT. There are facts. There are a right way to do things and a wrong way. And there's no crying in baseball. We don't need all this fluffy self-compassion stuff. And again, all you have to do is turn to your own mind and listen to it for about 10 minutes to decide that, hey, maybe I should learn to do something different because I'm not talking to myself very kind. Just like you were relaying with your story of the mindful speech, when you're constantly beating yourself up, and it's been about, 5, 10, 20, 25 years of you constantly beating yourself up, yet your life isn't any better, maybe you should try something different. So I think the first resistance to self-compassion is just realizing that if what you are doing really is working, great. But I think for most people, that voice we hear in our heads, it isn't helping us be the people we really want to be. It isn't helping us live better lives. For most of us, it may cause anxiety, may cause depression. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it became a big control battle inside my own head. I had to be in control. I couldn't be compassionate or soft or open and aware, because that was just too scary. So I think some of the myths of self-compassion, like you said, that it's going to make you weak or selfish, it doesn't make you weak or selfish. It gives you the strength to serve even more than you thought was possible. I think the being kind to yourself like you want to be to others is a basis to outside work. You hear a lot about compassion fatigue or empathy fatigue with people who are politically active, with people who do a lot of volunteer work, therapists, animal rescuers. If they're not taking the time to take care of themselves just as much as other people, it leads to burnout and frustration very, very, very quickly. The suicide rate for veterinarians is extraordinarily high, and you would think veterinarians, but they're always being in service. So I know a lot of people feel it's very important to be in service and giving, but to be sure you're giving to yourself. I think another resistance I had was, it's going to make me a doormat. I'm just going to say yes to everything, and anybody ever asks me for, I must say yes, because that's the compassionate thing to do. If you're not watching my eyes roll, I am rolling my eyes greatly. I think that's one of the biggest myths I hear people talk about. And I didn't need any more help becoming a doormat than I already was. I wanted to learn how to be more assertive, not more roll over and take it. And I think, again, the self-compassion allows you to see through eyes that can more accurately reflect your strengths. In the Self-Compassion Challenge, I talk a lot about how we ended up where we are and why we see things in such a harsh light to ourselves, about ourselves. And self-compassion practices help you kind of balance the two lenses. Nobody's all good, nobody's all evil. And to help you see things in a way that I talk about the angry self, the compassionate self. I talk about our drives. Your drive to succeed has to be balanced with your drive for soothing and self-care. And when some of those drives, our three emotional systems, get balanced out, a lot of those reluctances kind of fade away a bit, because we see that self-compassion is more about inner strength. Because if you spend your day beating yourself up, you're not really going to achieve as much as possible.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'd like to just pause and read a few of the comments from when I asked the group what brought them here today, and maybe give you a chance to, once I sort of read through some of those, if you have any reactions. I have to say, we've got a little over 200 people signed up for this challenge, and there's 25 people live watching us now. Hello, friends, which is a pretty good turnout for a Monday night. So apparently everybody is as excited as I am for this conversation. So I asked what brought people here. Why are you exploring self-compassion? Barbara says that she's curious. Roxanne said she's continuing to explore self-compassion and expanding her own love for herself. Nicholas says he's a recovering overthinker as well, and that's why he's here. Jessica says she's open to techniques for self-care that she doesn't employ or know of. It seems like an area that can always be improved upon, as my default when under stress is self-neglect.
Yep.
Good one. Our dear friend AJ says, with the past year being some of the most emotional times I've been through, I want to be refreshed on why it's important to love myself, even through that, and with an emphasis to forgive myself. It's a good one. Our friend Rich says, I have been needing to get into a self-compassion practice. I do great for caring for others and helping ease suffering for others, but haven't been doing so for myself. I mean, I think that's something that really resonates for me. Emily says she's been doing a series of challenges in self-love over the last few months, but feels like she's been slipping back into her old ways. A few people chiming in and saying that they certainly understand that. Yeah, maybe I'll pause there for a second and just, if you have any thoughts or reactions to that, Leanne.
Yeah, I mean, all of that sounds totally typical. I mean, the one thing we can say that most of us watching this are human, and speaking some form of language, and it's amazing what our own minds can make as important and make as bad inside of us, and how we start to interpret those things. You know, talking about caring for others and not ourselves, I think is really, really common in our Western culture. In, you know, we'll say the past 30, 40 years, it's work hard, you know, support yourself. And a lot of times you're not finding that support from others. Those kind of communities, that larger family structure, just isn't there and healthy. Sometimes we have to go out and seek healthy structures. And I think one of the things for self-compassion for me that makes it a little bit different from self-love is the inclusion of mindfulness, awareness, with a bit of common humanity. Dr. Kristen Neff is someone that I quote in there. And in the writings, I do include TED Talks and resources. She talks about self-compassion is connecting with our common humanity. And the reason I really like that is because a big deal in self-compassion is feeling like I am alone. I am doing this wrong. We're not that there's another person in our head, but we're very, very narrowly focused on I and what I'm thinking. And when we kind of reach out a little bit and see that there are thousands of other people who feel just as alone as we do, we're in good company. It kind of becomes a little comical after a while to realize that there are so many people who are alone, we might as well join our own club and create a club of lonely people, and then nobody would be alone again. I think that's one of the main things of self-compassion, is realizing that common humanity that we don't think about when we get stuck up in our heads all day. You know, the overthinking, again, I always think of it as head on a stick. We're in our minds and it just happens to be in our body, and our legs take us around and our hands do things. But what's really going on to connect everything in there, to make us feel less compassionate, or more compassionate, less alone?
I got a great question from AJ that I'm going to ask in a quick second, but you made a distinction that, because I'm still sort of new to the subject, stood out for me. You said the difference between self-love and self-compassion. How related and how different are those terms? Are they interchangeable? Do they have a little, can you just sort of explore what those two terms mean to you?
Yeah, for me, I like to make the distinction a little bit more, only because, again, those two terms aren't written in stone. You know, there's no self-compassion person who says, okay, this is this is that. The way I've seen them used, self-care, I think, is great when you're in the middle of extreme stress and making sure you're doing that meditation, or, like I said, a bubble bath, because don't get me wrong, I love my bubble bath. You know, the books, the reading, but it tends to be short term, and it also tends to be soothing in the moment. For me, self-compassion really talks to a more in-depth, longer term, deeper reaching practice. You know, you're really dealing with things that have come out of our history. You're looking intently at your life and the things that are coming up in it. You know, I think someone wrote in earlier about having illnesses, having eating disorders, being in recovery. I think self-love is vital. I have lots of family members who are in recovery. And you certainly can't say, well, I'm not going to do those short-term things, because they're vital for in the moment soothing. But once you're kind of out of that moment in order to prevent those feelings of anxiety and that shame and blame that we do to ourselves. That longer, deeper look into ourselves, I think, is where the self-compassion techniques take a little bit more interest in time. To me, self-compassion is more preventative. Self-care is in the moment.
So got a great question from our friend AJ here. Challenging one. I spent a good chunk of my master's research working on exactly this topic. AJ asks, what's the easiest way to recognize the need for and kick yourself into self-compassion mode?
Well, I'm trying to figure out the kick yourself into mode, knowing AJ a little bit. My hesitation is in the kick yourself into self-compassion mode. Kind of seems like anti-self-compassion to me. And again, AJ, I can't hear your tone, so I don't quite know. But if I read that not knowing who wrote it, kick yourself, the number one rule in these 10 days, if you don't listen to anything else I say, the number one rule for these 10 days is don't beat yourself up about not being self-compassionate enough. I cannot emphasize this enough. Again, for those of us who are dealing with those control issues, going to bed at night and going, I didn't even do what was in this challenge today. I cannot believe me. Just don't. Just give yourself a break. Forgive yourself. These are new things to start. And I think, to Anthony's point, in habit formation, baby steps. Baby steps. If we set the bar so high, we're not going to get any reinforcement from meeting it. We're always going to be deterred from even attempting it, because every time we try, we fail. So in the challenge, I really talk about concepts and little things that you can do just as a level of awareness. I don't want anybody changing in 10 days. You won't stick with it. So even to become aware of that voice in your head. I've yet to meet anybody who says, I don't have any self-talk. I don't know what you're talking about. So that isn't even a thing. Everybody has self-talk. It's just a matter of, is it helping you or is it hurting you? And I think for me, my philosophy is always, how effective is what you're doing? What really helps? Whether it's in the moment or long-term, kind of learning how to play those two together and making room for everything that shows up. This isn't about being Pollyanna happy all the time. This is about making room for real pain. If you have an illness in your family, or if there's something that you cannot change, making room for that sadness and that sorrow doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger for actually being able to face it and come to terms with it, and then learn what to do next. So sorry, AJ, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to kick you into gear, but I will say, at least using those little techniques day by day and building on it slowly is much healthier longer term.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. And AJ said in the chat here, touche. So well done. She also said, laugh out loud, LOL. So I think you sort of pegged it there. What was my next question? But I'm going to go ahead and ask it, even for emphasis, or if you want to maybe add a second point to it. For somebody who just watches this video and doesn't read any of the 10 days of emails, which would be a terrible mistake, guys, because I've read the emails, they're phenomenal. You really want to make sure that you're getting them. So check out the link in the comment section below this, newleafmeditation.org/self-compassion, and sign up to get the emails. If for some reason you're not getting them, you can email me at anthony@newleafmeditation.org, and I'll get you signed up that way if you're having any problems. But if somebody was going to make the miss the opportunity to read all the wonderful emails you've prepared, what is the one thing that you would want them to walk away from this challenge with?
I think to me, the one thing, other than don't beat yourself up for not feeling like you're being self-compassionate enough, because we need another thing to put on our task list, is to just start with the awareness of every thought of kindness for others. Reflect upon, is that something I do to myself? I know a lot of people want to be very kind to everyone, just like you were saying, holding the door open, making sure you're polite to the wait staff who might be helping you out. That nobody is insignificant. And I think folks who are so concerned with other people, I think sometimes we forget that even we are not insignificant. And it doesn't matter where it started. To me, I don't really go much into how we ended up where you are, but how are you going to move forward? And using that trigger of wanting to be kind to other people really helped me remember to be kind to myself. I did a lot of therapy dog work over the past 13 years now, I guess. And it was very easy for me to do a lot of self-sacrifice, to go out and do that therapy dog work, and then come back feeling exhausted. And it wasn't a matter of that the volunteer work was that exhausting. It was that I was running on empty. The expression of put your own mask on first and then put someone else's on, I think is really applicable, especially in this day and age now where we're getting hit with social media, political activism. People are engaged. But my fear is, and in 6 months, a lot of these people who are helpful will drop off out of exhaustion. So I'm really, one of the reasons for putting together this challenge was to try to remind people how to keep that inner wisdom and kindness going and nourished and fed in these times when you're most needed.
That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to how this conversation evolves over the next 10 days. And, one of the things I love about this group is I think a lot of this will spill over into, we've got Tuesday night, tomorrow night, a lot of our regulars will be showing up for that and talking about this. And then we've got the wonderful discussion group on Facebook where so many people participate in the conversation too. So I'm really looking forward to. There's some wonderful comments here. You're getting a lot of praise. Beautifully said, Leanne. Oh wow, that's powerful. You're getting some thumbs up here. I think people are really appreciating the tone you're setting for these next 10 days. And I'm looking forward to kind of the group conversation that evolves around this. Since we're about half an hour in and we should probably start, I know we could talk about this for hours, but we should probably start. What can people expect of these next 10 days? Do you want to give us a little sense of the themes that you'll touch on and what we'll be talking about?
Yeah, I definitely did. So for the next 10 days, what I've created, and by the way, I really want to give credit where credit's due. Big shout out to my ACBS peeps. I saw a bunch of you join, so thank you. And all my fellow ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, and Compassion Focused Therapy folks, thanks for joining. I definitely did not come up with any of this. I'm merely the curator of it. I've got a lot of material from Dr. Kristen Neff. I've got Dennis Church. Probably the book that I use the most, Compassion Focused Therapy Made Simple. Now, for those of you who aren't therapists, don't freak. Dr. Russell Coates wrote this one, and his book is the made simple part really is that simple, that I think it's a valuable resource for anyone who wants to learn more about self-compassion, because a lot of the material that I write over the next 10 days is taken from his book, whether it's It's just the concept of, oh, I want to make sure this is inherent to his explanations. And he has some TED Talks. He has another book on self-compassion and anger out. And he does have some mindfulness and some other books out as well. So the email that you'll be getting tomorrow is kind of our kickoff email and a little bit more detail on probably the biggest things that come up when people hear about self-compassion and go, ew, kind of the ick factor email. Day 2 will be Anthony's wisdom, which of course I'm always loving to hear. Day 3, we start with the red alert, the threat system of self-compassion.
I'm laughing because Leanne's saying she'd love to hear it because I haven't written it yet. So Leanne wrote all of her material 2 weeks ago, and I'm practicing the self-compassion of giving myself time to write this right up until the moment.
Hey, that works. Whatever works, right? Whatever helps. There's 3 systems, 3 emotional systems that really play into self-compassion: the threat system, the drive system, and then the soothing or safety system. And so to not get into a whole bunch of really technical mumbo jumbo, I take how those 3 systems interact with each other inside of us and just give you a little example in there. So day 3, we start with the threat system because I think most people can identify with that one right off. Day 4, we kind of go into a little bit of lizard brain versus mammal brain. If you watch TED Talks, you've probably seen a couple of things on this already. And it is a little bit more on like Buddha's brain, Rick Hanson's work with we are more primed to see threats, the bear in the bush scenario, as I call it. You drive me crazy is day 5, and that is a little bit more about the drive system and how we can use that hit, that inspiration when we're looking for awe or curiosity, and we want to work with those emotions more, how we can use those as part of self-compassion. Day 6 is I can't see you, my ego is in the way, and that's all about how ego can get in the way of self-compassion and make things a little more complex and tricky for us. Day 7 is on that safety system. I've kind of dubbed that one Safe to Say I've Had Enough. It talks about how to invoke that soothing system inside of us. And a lot of that has to do with visualizations, imagining different scenarios, imagining a wise friend. Day 8 is self-talk and self-compassion. That personally was very hard for me to keep short, so it's probably the longest one in there because self-talk is the issue that I've dealt with my entire life and probably had the biggest impact for the better with self-compassion training. Day 9 is anger and the self-compassion system, or a little bit more about how to work with anger and self-compassion, because anger makes us feel powerful and in charge, and there's righteous anger going all over the internet nowadays. And what do we do with all of this anger, especially if we think we're right? And in the day 10 is a wrap up of what do we do next? Where do we go from here? I'm also a really big believer of people having their own resources to be able to further their studies. So of course you can always email me and ask me any questions. If anybody has any questions about where I said or why I said something, I can point you to the resources I used as references. But there's books and blogs and websites and a ton of really helpful information out there on the internet available for anybody who's interested.
Very awesome. Leanne, we got a quick question. Rick asked, the book that you shared, the CFT book, can you just give me more information on that?
Can I put what?
Rich was asking the book that you had showed the cover of, the CFT. Who wrote that?
CFT is Dr. Russell Coates.
Russell Coates.
You'll be able to get it off Amazon or New Harbinger Publishing.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, look at that. And Brian Peck was going ahead and answering the question too because he recognized it. Hi, Brian. This is great. Leanne, I'm really thrilled. I can't wait. for the next couple of days. I'm looking forward to everything that I have to learn from you. I'm looking forward to seeing what our friends say. Leanne made a very important point. So this is a conversation. So if you're in this challenge and you're not signed up for the Facebook discussion group, check out the email we'll send tomorrow morning and come join us there. You can just reply to any of the emails we send you. We'll send out the emails first thing in the morning. It's just me and Leanne on the other side. We want to hear from you. We'd like to have a conversation with you. There's only 200 people in this challenge. We know a lot of you. If we don't know you, we're looking forward to getting to know you better through the course of this. So we're here to help, and we love this stuff. And I think you've got a real content expert in Leanne here. So you know, take advantage of these next few days with us, and think about this, write about it, talk about it with your friends, sit and meditate with it. You know, I love these challenges. They give us a chance to set aside a little bit of time and really explore one of these topics. So I think, unless there are any questions, if anybody has anything that they need to bring up real quick before we head out of here, I think we've touched on anything. Any closing thoughts before we sign off, Leanne?
Just thank you for organizing all this, and I am really looking forward to speaking to all of you. Do not hesitate to email, even if you're the quiet, shy person who feels like they don't know anything about self-compassion. You want to learn. That's all we can ask for. You know, I know a lot of times 10 days feels like, oh my gosh, I'm still at this. But please go through each of the emails and just give yourself the kindness of 5 minutes each morning for just 10 days to learn a little bit more about yourself and reflect on it. And it's not a self-improvement, self-task, I need to get healthy, eat right, and go to the gym on the same week type of thing. But even just 5 minutes for reading that email and reflecting on a little bit. I personally really like journaling. You can journal by talking out loud into the phone and recording yourself for later even. You don't have to write it down. But I really want to encourage you to take that time for yourself, because we get stuck in our heads. Dr. Steve Hayes wrote the greatest book title ever, Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. And I am certainly one that can read a lot, but I know that reading has to come into practice. So I want to encourage you to take that time to read and put into practice even just a smidgen of what we come across. So thank you guys so much for signing up and attending.
Leanne, thank you. I really appreciate all the hard work you put into this. I can't wait until everybody else gets to see what I've been reading for the last couple of days. Leanne, I know you're not seeing the group chat, but a good 24 people here have been thanking you for your short stories and your wisdom. You're getting a lot of applause in the chat group. So thank you, Leanne, and thank you everybody for participating with us, and we'll see you with an email first thing in the morning.
Bye.
Bye.